Today on NewsWatch, make a deal or move on. President Trump gives GOP lawmakers an ultimatum to vote today or keep the Affordable Care Act. Plus, new details emerge in the deadly terror attack in Britain, what investigators have learned about the suspect. And protecting children from the unthinkable will show you what one ministry is doing to put an end to child sacrifice. And thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Take it or leave it. That is President Donald Trump's message to House Republicans after members failed to strike a deal Thursday on the GOP plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. That sets up a risky vote in the House today. Jennifer Wishon has more.
Instead of voting Thursday night, members of the conservative House Freedom Caucus filed into Speaker Paul Ryan's office, followed by Trump advisor Steve Bannon and Chief of Staff Reince Priebus. President Donald Trump's plain-spoken, no-nonsense budget director, Mick Mulvaney, spoke to lawmakers behind closed doors. Mulvaney's message? The president is done negotiating. He wants a vote. And whether the American Health Care Act is voted up or down, Trump is moving on. This follows a week where both the president and vice president have personally worked to win over lawmakers.
This is, and I think a lot of members realize this, if you want to get Obamacare off the books and repeal it, this is the first step. And we only get one shot through reconciliation. You don't get a do-over.
After negotiations Thursday with both conservative and moderate Republicans, Speaker Ryan announced an amendment designed to garner enough votes from the wavering conservatives to pass the bill over to the Senate. The amendment gives states the power to define essential health benefits, currently mandated by Obamacare. Critics say giving Washington the power to say what insurance plans need to cover, whether people need that coverage or not, has been a big reason why the cost of insurance has gone up so much. The amendment also dedicates an additional $15 billion to the Patient and State Stability Fund to provide resources for services like maternity, mental health, and substance abuse care. And it delays the repeal of the Medicare tax increase for 6 years, which helps pay for that increased $15 billion to states. Speaker Ryan needs most Republicans on board, since no Democrats are expected to support the legislation.
Right now, the main sales pitch for this legislation is, well, it's not as bad as Obamacare. Well, not being as bad as Obamacare, that's a pretty low bar, and that doesn't make it good.
For some lawmakers, pro-life language in the bill is a selling point.
We also take out a lot of the provisions currently in Obamacare that are paying for abortion with taxpayer dollars, and that is just wrong.
Votes or not, the showdown happens today. If it fails, Obamacare remains the law of the land. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
The Senate Judiciary Committee is now in its fifth day of hearings for President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Neil Gorsuch, and it looks like the vote is headed for a filibuster showdown that could force Republicans to change Senate rules to confirm him.
If this nominee cannot earn 60 votes, a bar met by each of President Obama's nominees and George Bush's last two nominees, the answer isn't to change the rules, it's to change the nominee.
Normal rules require 60 votes to confirm a Supreme Court nominee. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is joining at least 7 other Democrats who have announced they are voting against Gorsuch. New information today in the terror attack in London. The suspect has been identified, and police in the UK now have arrested 8 people in connection with the attack. Mark Martin has this story.
After ISIS claimed responsibility for the Westminster Bridge terror attack, British Prime Minister Theresa May declared her country is fearless.
We are not afraid, and our resolve will never waver in the face of terrorism.
ISIS called the suspect, who has now been identified as 52-year-old Khalid Massoud, a soldier of the Islamic State. Surveillance video caught Massoud driving a car across the crowded bridge, plowing through pedestrians before smashing into a railing outside Parliament. He then ran from his car and was shot and killed by police. Authorities say Massoud was born in the UK and had a long criminal history. However, police say no crimes were terrorism related. British authorities had investigated him for extremism in the past, but he was not currently on a terrorism watch list. Police arrested 5 men and 3 women on suspicion of preparation of terrorist acts in connection to the attack. And people in London honored those who lost their lives, including Keith Palmer, the 48-year-old police officer stabbed by the attacker.
Doing a job he loved and protecting our city, protecting Parliament.
They also paid tribute to Kurt Cochran of Utah, who was celebrating his silver wedding anniversary with his wife Melissa in Europe.
The only word I could really describe it as is surreal. One thing I could say about Kurt and his legacy, though, is he did live his dream.
The threat level in the United Kingdom remains at severe. That means a terrorist attack is highly likely to happen. Mark Martin, CBN News.
Security remains tight at a Maryland high school now in the middle of America's immigration debate. 2 18-year-old undocumented immigrants are accused of raping a 14-year-old girl. Now, activists on both sides are using the Rockville, Maryland school as a battleground, turning a protest over funding into one over immigration. Extremists even threaten to burn down the school or shoot illegal immigrants.
The vitriol has gotten out of control. Some of the calls are racist, xenophobic, and we really want people to take a step back and think about the students who are at the center of this, who have been affected by this.
We can't condone any kind of hate speech like that, and it's terrible, and that it's not something that should be allowed to go on.
I'm not really sure what the answer is, but to simply ignore it and say there's not a problem is beyond appalling.
The Trump administration says it is working to stop illegal immigration because of, quote, tragedies like this. I want to turn now to another immigration story out of Maryland, where a university has created a position aimed at helping students living in the U.S. illegally. Ben Kennedy has this story.
Since the election of President Trump, both sides of the immigration debate are making moves. That includes institutions like churches and schools. Just outside the Beltway, the University of Maryland is creating a job solely to help illegal immigrants, called Undocumented Student Coordinator.
I think it does create a false stigma when we say undocumented students or illegal immigrants or anything like that, because a lot of them are here for education.
I think it'll really make their transition into college a lot easier.
Right now, there are more than 100 undocumented students attending class right here on the UMD campus. Many are protected under an Obama administration policy known as the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA. It allows undocumented immigrants who enter the country as minors a 2-year period of deferred action from deportation. Alfonso Aguilar, the former chief of the U.S. Office of Citizenship, told CBN News this move by UMD is meant to advance a political agenda on campus and even clash with President Trump's immigration policy.
Donald Trump has been very clear that he's going to go after undocumented immigrants who pose a threat to the security of our communities, people with serious criminal records. So they're not going after DACA recipients.
So you feel this move by Maryland is strictly political?
Sadly, it is. I think they're trying to make a political point. There were more deportations under Obama. Why didn't they create this office under Obama?
We reached out to the University of Maryland for that answer, and they gave us this statement. As part of the university's ongoing commitment to undocumented students, we continue to consider ways to offer support. We are assigning a UMD staff person to serve as a coordinator to address the immediate needs of the undocumented student population, and we will continue to assess the need for staff support moving forward.
I've gotten various emails from the university saying that this is a sanctuary for all kinds of students, no matter where they're from.
Which at the end really exacerbates the fear among DACA recipients, because it sounds like they're creating the office to protect them because the federal government is coming after them, which is not happening.
Ben Kennedy, CBN News, Maryland.
A 3-judge panel unanimously ruled a school board in Texas can open its meetings with student-led prayer. The case involved the Birdville Independent School District, which has allowed students to pray since 1997. The judges from the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals noted a 2014 Supreme Court ruling that allowed prayers at town council meetings in Greece, New York. The Texas ruling is expected to be appealed. Coming up, fighting child sacrifice. See how the Christian organization is saving lives in Uganda. A 19-year-old American-Israeli Jewish man has been arrested. He was arrested on Thursday and charged in connection to the recent wave of bomb threats against the U.S. community centers. Officials haven't released his name, but he is described as a hacker who holds dual Israeli and American citizenship. Police arrested him in southern Israel after an undercover investigation involving the FBI. Every year, hundreds of Ugandan children are kidnapped and murdered as part of a thriving human sacrifice business. But now, a Christian pastor is teaming up with police and politicians to stop the brutal practice. We want to warn you, parts of this story are disturbing. George Thomas brings us this exclusive report from Uganda's capital city of Kampala.
It's a little after 2 in the morning, about an hour's drive south of Kampala. CBN News has joined undercover detectives, armed police, and a pastor hunting for a witch doctor accused of kidnapping and killing children.
Witch doctors believe that when you kidnap a child, you get wealth, you get protection.
Pastor Peter Siwakiyanga leads the search. He runs Champesi Child Care Ministries, a Christian effort to stamp out child sacrifice in Uganda. He describes the witch doctor's brutal ritual.
When they get the child, most times they cut the neck, they take the blood out, they cut the genitals or any body organs that the spirits want. In a sense, it involves the child dying.
A few hours in, the trail for the killer goes cold. Pastor Peter says these gruesome crimes happen almost each month.
And there are very few actually that survive. Most of them die.
I had high hopes and dreams for Clive.
Rachel Kasingu's 3-year-old son Clive disappeared June 2nd, 2015, while playing in the backyard of their home.
It was around 10 in the morning when we noticed he was nowhere to be found.
CBN News met Kasingu the day police told her what happened to her son.
I've never even heard of child sacrifice. I didn't even know what the phrase meant.
Detective Emmanuel Mafunda took us to the spot, not too far from his home, where they found Clive's remains in this pit toilet filled with human feces. Mafunda said the key suspect turned out to be Kasingu's neighbor, a wealthy businessman who allegedly hired 2 men to kidnap and mutilate Clive's body, believing the act would bring good luck to his new hotel project. Detective Mafundo said the suspect paid the equivalent of $1,400 for Clive's life.
I found it so queer how someone, because of superstition, can be able to sacrifice a 3-year-old kid.
Child sacrifice today in Uganda is such a serious and widespread problem that the government has even set up an anti-child sacrifice and human trafficking task force. Chief Investigator Moses Binoga says that in addition to decapitation, witch doctors often slice the child's tongue and mix it with herbs for special powers.
The tongue is used to silence enemies.
Mike Chibita is Uganda's top law enforcement official, the equivalent of America's Attorney General. He says superstition and the desire to get rich quick contribute to high child sacrifice rates in his country.
The connection is these witch doctors come and tell people who want to get rich that in order to get rich, you need to sacrifice human blood.
Best friends Kanani Nankunda, George Mukisa, and Alan Simbatia are fortunate to be alive, but bear the physical and emotional scars of their past. The 3 are child sacrifice survivors. A few years back, Kanani and his 7-year-old sister were attacked in the bush. He has a 10-inch scar on the back of his neck where the witch doctor tried to drain his blood.
I fainted, and when I regained consciousness, I found my sister dead with her head missing.
2 men attacked Alan Simbatia on his way home from school.
I tried to scream for my parents, but my voice was not strong enough for them to hear me.
They stabbed his neck, sliced his head with a machete, then castrated him. Alan remained in a coma for 2 months after his miraculous rescue. George Mukisa's mother found him lying in a pool of blood after a man castrated his privates with a blunt knife. Doctors had to reconstruct his genitals with skin grafted from his forearm. The boys say they encourage each other to look past their physical challenges.
God is helping us in many different ways. When we think about what happened to us, we just pray and ask God that this would never happen to anybody else.
The 3 boys are now under Pastor Peter's care. Champisi Child Care Ministries is the only organization in the country providing long-term financial and medical care for survivors of child sacrifice.
We want to see that the life of a child who has survived is supported, that they are socially able to stand and heal from the injuries, and that they can have a life after that.
Rachel Casigo says life without Clive will never be the same. Still, she has a message for the men who brutally murdered her 3-year-old son.
Because of my faith in Jesus, I believe in second chances, and I would give it to them because there's nothing I can do to bring Clive back. My message to them is confess your sins and come to the Lord, because when you come to the Lord, He will forgive your sins.
George Thomas, CBN News, Kampala, Uganda.
And to learn how you can help these children, check out more information at cbnnews.com. Every year, Israeli archaeologists dig up thousands of artifacts, but where do they go after scientists have done studying them? CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell has the story.
This is the place where, at the end of the day, all archaeological findings in the country come to rest.
CBN News got a rare look at just a part of many artifacts, such as large water jugs, like the ones filled with water Jesus turned into wine.
We here see an assemblage related to the period of the life of Jesus. Vessels common in the houses of the Jewish society in Jerusalem, combining limestone vessels, large vessels, small vessels, different vessels, and ceramics.
Every year there are something like 30 to 40,000 new artifacts. We are conducting around 300 excavations per year.
Archaeologist Gidon Avni says those excavations over the last 20 to 30 years have greatly increased our knowledge about life during the time of Christ.
We can reconstruct today what happened to an average person during the time of Christ, from the minute of his birth till his burial.
One rare find is this stone from a synagogue at Magdala, home to Mary Magdalene, where Jesus could have preached. And there's more. Recently, archaeologists found 9 ancient copper coins where workers were widening the main road between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv.
These coins show one of the major aspects of Christian pilgrimage to the Holy Land, where tens of thousands of people were coming from all over the known world of this time. All of them coming to follow the footsteps of Christ, using the road system climbing to Jerusalem.
Although archaeologists hesitate to say their work proves the Bible, they maintain it provides evidence of life during biblical times.
If you're speaking about New Testament, so archaeology very much reinforces the narrative and descriptions of the Gospels, providing physical evidence.
And if you can't make the trip to Israel, Avni says you can soon go online to see these artifacts tell the story of the land of the Bible. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Sights worth seeing. Stay with us. There's more of CBN NewsWatch straight ahead. Athletes Simone Biles and Rashad Jennings are taking their faith to the dance floor.
For week 1, Olympic great Simone Biles and partner Sasha Farber tangoed their way to the top of the judges' leaderboard, scoring all 8s. Just a point behind in second place, another athlete, football star Rashad Jennings and his partner Emma Slater.
Olympic gymnast Simone Biles and New York Giants running back Rashad Jennings are top scorers on Dancing with the Stars, and both have shared their personal stories of faith with us.
I was taught that you can go to him for anything, and he's the one that directs your life. I try my hardest to live from the reference of scriptures and let that be my, mirror. Every day I got to be able to look in the mirror and say that's the guy that I'm trying to become.
Congrats to both of them. For the latest and uplifting entertainment news, be sure to check out my new show, Studio 5. You can do that by heading to cbn.com/Studio 5. Right now it is time for your Friday Faithful, and here is something to consider as we wrap up this week. Your true value is not in your job. It's also not in your bank account. Your true value is in the trust you place in your Heavenly Father. Remember, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And in the words of a very close family member, God doesn't make any junk. With that word, make this a fabulous Friday and a wonderful weekend. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. We'd love to hear what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that by emailing newswatch@cbn.com or reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Make it a fabulous Friday and a wonderful weekend. We'll see you right back here come Monday.